The Red Roses, right? They are almost definitely going to win the Six Nations this year. It becomes so difficult to talk about them, so difficult to find things to talk about. They have so many outstanding players. They are nailed on favourites to the World Cup coming up. They were last time, however, and they slipped up and they lost the final. The questions around this Six Nations for the Red Roses, I think, are less around the tournament and more in the context of what happens at Twickenham later this year.
Yeah. Obviously, this isn't a World Cup preview. This is a Six Nations preview. We will preview the World Cup later in the year, right?
Indeed.
We want to talk about the Six Nations here, but you are still right. They're very much viewing this as preparation for the World Cup.
Yeah.
You can see that in their first team selection they've gone for, where they've rotated a lot of players in who either haven't played in that combination before, people playing in new positions, people where it's been a while since they last got a run out, or 80 minutes certainly, in an England shirt. There's a lot that they've tinkered with here. So that does say to me that they're going to use these 5 games to their fullest. We're going to see so many different sides to England, and they're going to try and make themselves utterly bulletproof. Yeah. And we thought that Simon Middleton did that last time round. John Mitchell, I think, has rounded out the game even more, right? So I think there's so many ways that we can dress this up, right? Yeah. As a format, talking about England going into the Six Nations, right? So we've been watching rugby for about 17 years now, and
the rest.
Yeah, I would probably say that up there with the 2015 All Blacks squad, possibly even more so than them, this current England team are as close to a perfect rugby team as I've ever seen, right?
They are the most dominant team I've ever seen.
Yeah.
And they are very close to being the most well-rounded team beyond that 2015 All Blacks team that I've ever seen.
And I will level with you as a fan of the Wales national team and a fan of the Six Nations, you know, growing up as a fan of the men's Six Nations and the unpredictability of it, and now a huge fan of the women's Six Nations. There is a part of you that gets to England games and you kind of go, you switch off a little bit and you kind of go, this is a foregone conclusion, right?
Yeah.
So I will level with you. I do not want England to win the Six Nations. I don't. I want Wales to win the Six Nations, obviously, as a Welsh fan. And, it's horrible because obviously those England players and coaches are extremely well-meaning and nice people, right? But they are the opponents of the team that I'm cheering for.
Yeah.
They are the rivals of the team I'm cheering for. I want somebody to beat them.
You also do think, from an England point of view, is it good for them if they lose a game beforehand?
They would say no, but carry on.
But you've got to think about this, right?
Yeah.
So they won the World Cup in 2014, right? Who won the Six Nations in 2014?
France?
France, right. They slipped up. That gave them a great chance to learn from and go, oh, okay, we haven't really been challenged the last couple of years. Now let's build on this and let's work out how do we deal with these tough games, right? It's one of these situations that the All Blacks struggled with at World Cups in 2007, 2003, and to some extent 99 as well, where they weren't used to being in tight games, right? Like, they were so used to dominating and winning games by huge margins. We saw, I think, recently in 2017, right? That first game where the Razzie Springboks beat them for the first time in a decade or whatever it was. They had a perfect opportunity to kick a drop goal in the last play. Like, they had repeated phases inside the opposition 22, 5 metres out, 10 in the pocket, but they didn't have a drop goal drill. You saw the same thing in 2007 with the All Blacks, right? Sometimes you need to be in games where that's the situation for, even though I reckon John Mitchell was a brilliant coach and has prepared them incredibly well, I don't doubt that they have a drill for a drop goal if they need it. They haven't had to run it in a game situation yet.
It's very true. It's a very good point.
This World Cup will probably come down to tighter games in the semi and final, as we saw last time, right, when Canada and the All Blacks really pushed, Black Ferns rather, really pushed them. I think that England want at least to play in opposition where they don't blow them away this tournament. They want France or Ireland, or possibly even Wales or Scotland,
to put up a fight.
Really, really put up a fight, right? To be in the game in the last 10 minutes. So they've got to win the game. They haven't done it by 60 minutes.
Put your hand up if, in 2022, you thought that England were utterly bulletproof until that final. Yeah. The Rugby Values man's got his hand up.
Yeah.
Jazz Joyce can't raise her hand, sadly. No. But, right, we all thought that until the final. Yeah. We all thought this is the perfect rugby team. And granted, we're maybe guilty of doing the same thing. It literally took, against teams who weren't as good as the Black Ferns, they were bulletproof.
Yeah, that's it. Like, there was a growing feeling over that World Cup that the Black Ferns were going to do it, I think. Like, the deeper in I got, the more and more I thought this was going to happen.
And what it took was the only bullet, I guess, that they weren't proof of, you know, is that when they lost a woman out wide against a team who is as good at attack as the Black Ferns. They sometimes set through some line breaks, and that their kicking game wasn't as outrageously strong enough to prevent that from being the case. Now, since John Mitchell's come in, he has put so much heavier emphasis on the kicking game. He's put so much more through Ollie Aitchison as the fly half, and has demanded a lot more of the players out wide to kick chase.
A lot of that goes down to Lou Meadows as well, the attack coach.
Correct.
Who's made a huge impact on that.
Yeah.
Is very much someone similar to Lauren Labide on the men's side, who views kicking as a key
French
part of the
men's
attack.
side, that is. Yes.
Formerly. Yeah. Who views kicking as the core component of attack. You can't really attack without your kicking game being accurate. Not just in terms of, sorry, have you got a question, Ali? Well done. I think I'm brilliant. No, you are brilliant, yes, well done. For the sake of the Six Nations, it's Ali Done, not Billy Torkins.
Sorry.
They can go back over there. Sit in your little box, Ali. No, and so I think Lou Meadows made a real difference in that, as well as Mitchell, in terms of not making them more conservative, making them more grown up.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
And England are very good at not allowing teams into games. Before, they used to play these games that felt quite balanced in many ways, but England just scored so many tries.
Yeah. They were entertained before. Now they piss you off. And that's a good thing.
Now they strangle teams.
Yeah.
Like, now it's not just that they're in this even game, but they are the better side, so they score 16 tries because they've got these athletes that are freaks. Now their game plan is also the best in the world beyond that, right? 100%. So they are constantly strangling you, never giving you a chance to stay in the game, always pulling you out and moving you beyond that.
Much like that Welsh flag is trying to strangle you at the moment.
To me, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a couple of angles I want to go down. The first one, right, let's talk about the good of England, and then we'll kind of go on a hypothetical of how the hell are you meant to beat them? Yeah. I know that it probably won't happen, but how are teams going to approach it? So first off, right, I want to just look at, because we now have the benefit of having recorded this one after the team has been named for the first game. So a couple of notable things I want to talk about. One, Emma Singh's come in at 15.
Yeah.
And two, Helena Rowland's gone in at 10 with Ollie Aitchison moving to 12. That says to me, once again, as you say, Lou Meadows is very much of that philosophy is there's always a space on the pitch, right? It might be in behind, it might be on the other side of the field, you might need the cross field. You know, sometimes it's straight in front of you. It is about finding that and manipulating it to come closer to you. That says to me they've gone for a triple threat of ballers, right?
Yeah.
Who love to chuck it wide, who love to kick the ball, and who, given open space, will run riot.
Other interesting side of this is they've confirmed Emma Singh is going to do the goal kicking.
Right,
the weekend. Right, she is probably the best goal kicker in the Premier 15s.
Fantasy team.
PWR, love her. I've finally got out of calling it the Pro 12, the URC.
So I'll get around there eventually. She's going to take the goal kicking. I wonder whether that is a statement beyond this, you know? I think that is the one area where she can really stretch Ellie Dunn, who has been the best player in the world by some distance, you know, as we said, pretty comfortably, going over last year's Test Rugby.
It's a very uncontroversial opinion we'll throw out there, you know. So,
But-
she's the best player in the women's game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is, we haven't seen Ellie Dunn play any position other than fullback. Right?
She's played on the wing, but a while ago.
That's what I was going to say, like in the last few years.
Yeah.
She's played some early rugby on the wing, some early rugby at 13, but we're going back probably at least 5 years to the last time.
In 2022, she came off the bench playing on the wing a few times, but didn't really start there.
Right. So that's still more recent than I thought, but all the same, you wonder whether that becomes an option, but then are you just wasting Ali Dunn, who's the best player in the world? But the thing is, we don't know if they're looking to improve their accuracy in close games. Bringing in the best goal kicker, arguably in all of women's rugby, in Emma Singh, is that's a real weapon to have in the boat. That's not a phrase, but
even if you stick her on the bench in the World Cup, like it's one of these skills that makes you the most selectable. Literally anything you can do in rugby. If you're a good scrummager, if you're great at the line out, if you're an elite level goal kicker, if you're world class at any of those things, you're selectable, right? And sometimes, you get that 23 jersey, and even if they stick her on the wing, Emma Wing, brilliant. Even if they just do that and they just stick her out of the way, not that they'll be doing that because she's an unreal player on the park and she's so good defensively. She would do a job.
Other players pull up in the back three as well is Mia Venner, also from Gloucester Hartbury, who's had a fantastic season, but like close to season, I think she's been absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
When the game has required her to do more than just attack, you know, we've seen how good she is on the kick chase and
breakdown
and defensively.
Yeah.
She has this complete all-round game. And what this stinks of to me is Claudia McDonald a few years ago,
Yes.
where you thought going into that 22 World Cup that back three of Kildun, Breach, Dow was nailed on. There was no breaking into that. Then Claudia McDonald comes in. She's given one chance as a one-off game. And it's just unbelievable. And Jess Breach touched the ball like 4 times of the whole World Cup as a result.
Yeah.
And
Not even.
Mia Venner has a chance, I think, to do that. To be that player this time. This stinks of her coming in, scoring a hat-trick this weekend, and then going on beyond this and keeping that shirt.
I do also think, and I also realise I completely didn't mention Emily Scarrett's playing 13 when it came to kicking and distributing threats, because that's what she largely is these days.
Well, you said you were going to do the good third, and that's what you did with Scouts.
Hey. But Mia Venner coming in, as you say, there's such an all-round game to her. I think part of this is mind games of how far can John Mitchell stretch Jess Breach, and Abby Dow, because like Abby Dow, Jess Breach, both world-class finishers, like some of the best finishers I've ever seen in rugby ever, right? Neither of them are jackal threats, right? In a way that Mia Venner could be, if coached correctly, like to this standard. She certainly is at PWI level, right? Is great on the kick chase and so on. Now, Jess Breach, I think, has really rounded out her kicking game. That's something that's come on massively for her.
Moving her to fullback has been really interesting for her.
Yeah.
It's added to both her kicking game, as you mentioned, and her distribution. She's passing the ball. Again, I don't have exact stats. It's hard to get stats on the PWR. But it feels like she is passing about 10 times what she was 2 seasons ago.
100%. So part of me thinks that this developing depth thing is just, it's a means of boosting the players who are, in theory, first choice, giving them a bit of a kick up the arse.
My main takeaway of that 15 names for the Italy game is it is the most World Cup year team imaginable.
100%.
It is selected for a World Cup year. You want to give some other players an option, give them a chance to play their way into the squad, because they will have limited game time between now and the World Cup. Right? They'll probably have a few friendlies beforehand, but we are in the last sort of 7 or 8 games before that tournament starts.
Last position I want to talk about on this segment, as it were, is number 7, or the back row generally, right? Because Marley Pack is starting there this weekend, but in the PWR, she was a lot quieter than she usually is. Didn't have that stamp on a game, almost sometimes literally stamp on a game that she usually does. I think that was largely because GH targeted her a lot. And she has Sadia Kabea very heavily breathing down her neck. Sadia Kabea is only 22 years old.
What?
Yes.
I thought she was about 24, 25.
I will double check
She's
this.
22.
I will double check
Okay,
this.
so I was going to pull this as the player to watch, right, is Sadia Kabea.
Yeah.
That she was, at the last World Cup, already unbelievable.
Yes.
She came back, she worked incredibly hard, and she went up another gear. And
she's just turned 23.
She's just turned 20. Okay.
Last month.
Wow. I think there's an argument. She is the best rugby athlete England have produced since Mario Toge. As an all-round, all-court, can do everything, can do anything ball player. There's no weak part to her game. And we are seeing her strengths, having rounded out any weaknesses she had over the last few years, her strengths get better and better and better. And she's probably, most back rowers hit their prime around 26, 27, right? She is massively ahead of schedule, but I think we could be seeing her this year kick on to a level in which she is dominant.
Yeah.
We saw the same, Marley Packer made the comparison of Sadia Kabea reminds her of herself when she came through and was underneath that kind of, the 2014 World Cup winning back row, which were obviously...
Heather Fisher playing 7 for them back then.
But an incredibly, with, Sarah Hunter in her, I think, 82nd year of Test Rugby.
Yeah. So she was young at the point.
Yeah. And you had this kind of very iconic back row.
Yeah, Alex Matthews and Maggie Alfonsi both in there as well.
But Maggie Alfonsi being the big name, right? And Marley Packer said that she views Sadia as herself to her Maggie Alfonsi. It's that kind of same, it started as mentorship and now she's worried about her taking the shirt and them being rivals for it.
Yeah.
And in a way that Maggie Alfonsi was an absolute revelation and revolution and the best
one of the
female player that the game had ever seen up to that point.
Arguably still.
There's an argument that Marley Packer, with how dominant she was for a couple of years, did surpass that by having a more rounded out game. In a way that I think Alfonsi would have if she's got the chance to play professionally in the same way Packer
in this era. Right?
But I think, again, with the game evolving further, Cabella has a chance to take that thing even further.
100%.
And I think there is, and I don't want to hype her up too much, but there's a potential for her to become one of the all-time greats.
Yeah.
And I think that potentially starts this year with her taking that shirt over the course of the Six Nations, elevating England to a new level. And I said I wasn't going to hype her up too much, but potentially then going on a winning World Cup.
But she's got those first 15 cap jitters out the way.
Yeah.
You know, this is her starting afresh.
I think this is her year.
Yeah.
I think, like, if you wanted me to put down an early bet on World Player of the Year this year, I am putting down Sadia Cabella.
Yeah, fair play. I love that. Also at number 8, they've gone for Maddie Feyanati. I think it's a really interesting one.
Yeah.
So, for fans of the men's game, she is the daughter of Zach Feyanati, who you may remember used to play number 8 for Bath. But more importantly,
famously played Jonah Lomu in Invictus.
Correct. Yes. So, you know, she has genes that relate in a way to Jonah Lomu.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
They're going to bring Mike Catt in, and he's going to run over them in training over and over again.
Yeah. But she's a seriously good ball carrier, really quick, loves running into people, extremely uber physical, and even if she ends up going to the World Cup as second choice, there is a huge opportunity for her, with Alex Matthews currently banned for 3 games post the final.
She feels set to play in those games like Samoa, you know, where they get a chance to run out and kind of run riot a little bit, where the Red Roses will dominate. She'll probably come in and play brilliantly in those, if given the opportunity, which is hugely exciting. We should talk about the second half of the tournament a bit, I think.
Yeah.
Which is where the games get more challenging.
Yeah.
Ireland, I think, after having beaten the Black Ferns, will go in believing they can do this. And then France...
Turn around a good 90 points from last year.
And then France... Now, whenever it's in France... It's always an enormous challenge. They always really go out and back themselves. England pulled it off again last year. But as we saw last time when they played at Twickenham, there's a little bit of a free hit energy to France, you know, and they ended up coming incredibly close with Vernier pulling an absolute masterclass a couple of years ago. So is there a danger there in either the Ireland game away or the France game at Twickenham?
Well, it depends, and we'll tie in the question of how the hell do you beat this Red Roses team? What is it? Because you can't stop them all. You can't stop them out wide. They've suddenly built out this kicking game that makes it really impossible, right? So what can you do to beat them? I honestly am really struggling for the answer. I do think that freebies like if they pick up a red card early on, stuff like that could be necessary for anyone to beat them. I think maybe strangling them with the ball is probably the most important one, is stop them just having possession. But... once again, there's a bit of a trade-off between... You can't just choose to have possession and territory. It doesn't come that easily against a team this good.
This is the thing. I think the best way to stop the Red Roses, this isn't necessarily the way to beat them, but is to kick the absolute lever off the ball, is to pin them back constantly. Because this team are now in a much kick-heavier phase, you want them relying on that rather than anything else, right? Yeah. Because they can get on top through a kicking game, but they can't score points through it.
Sure.
Especially since they don't have... talking about the drop goal drills earlier. But you kind of want to neutralise that. And then, as we've seen the Black Ferns do, the only time they've lost in the last, 86 years, the Black Ferns just stretch them out wide, right? Yeah. And literally only the Black Ferns have the firepower to do that out wide. I think France are the next closest, but France have typically been too unorganised to do it. And I think I could see this Red Roses team losing to a combination of Ireland and France, but not to either of those teams.
Sure.
I think you need the French bullshit both in the pack to physically stop them all and get on top and dominate them a bit in the forward pack, right? Because we've seen France in the past get on top in the scrum, and they're the only team that can do that, the Red Roses. But you need a team as organised, as well coached as Ireland, and with the kicking game Ireland have. And I think between them, we can see, for the Red Roses, they can probably mentally put that together as there's 2 separate challenges we're coming up against. And we know when we get to New Zealand and Canada in the World Cup, they will be able to put this together a bit better than these 2 opponents can. But they will come up against, I think, the composite parts of the bigger challenges they face at the World Cup.
It is absolutely hilarious how little there was a problem with our mics that we just sorted out properly, and hence why the audio's back.
Yeah, don't worry.
It's incredible how
fine.
that didn't happen.
How
nobody noticed an issue at all.
Apologies. Not that we have anything to apologise for.
No. Why would we for most of the video?
That was actually just, I was doing like the Rob Brydon man in a box thing.
I was actually just underwater for a little bit. I just wanted to like do an impression of how it feels to play against England. It was like a really method.
Good to be hydrated,
thing.
you know.
Yeah, exactly.
But I figure we might as well. You've just talked about Sadia Kabaya whilst sounding like that. You've just talked about Sadia Kabaya as your one to watch for this year. I'll talk about another player.
You should, yes.
I'm going to talk about forward because I often go very backs heavy in these things. And I think it's good. It's important to have balance, you know. I don't want to upset Matt Williams by going discrimination against a certain position, you know. So I'm going to go with, as my player to watch this year for England, Maud Muir.
Yes.
Because she is so much more than a tight head prop. That, again, if you're new to women's rugby, right, I think we've discussed this off air before.
It's one of these things that I want to bring up in a video we'll hopefully have on the main channel soon. But the tight head prop position for me in women's rugby is completely different from men's rugby.
Yes.
It is basically a second number 8.
Yeah.
It is closer to the hooker position in men's rugby than it is the tight head position.
Yeah.
It is generally used as a battering ram, as a front up carrier, because they're your biggest and physically strongest player. So obviously you want to send them into contact as often as you can when the weight and power differential, particularly the difference in strength between the strongest player and the least strong player in women's rugby is a much greater differential than it is in men's rugby.
Yeah.
So obviously you want to be trying to send your tight head prop as your strongest player over the top of fly-offs and scrum-offs and so on. So it's a much exaggerated position, so much more is asked of them. And Maud Muir at the minute is the best in the world at so much of that role.
And crucially, a lot of the top tight heads of women's rugby are a lot faster than the tight heads in men's rugby at the top.
Yeah.
You know, to be one of the best tight heads in men's rugby, you're looking at players like Franz Malherbe, who are very good at holding up a scrum and will get around the park and kind of do what they need to. And that is kind of what they do. That is their role in the team.
Franz Malherbe is a pure scrummager and he's got a great rugby brain.
Yes.
So he's used basically to spot things in defence.
Yes.
Right? Genuinely, he wouldn't cut it in women's rugby.
No.
He would be seen as a novelty player in women's rugby. He wouldn't be like a world-class tight head.
Obviously, if you account for the differences between men and women, blah, blah,
No,
blah.
but like someone that just scrummages
Yes.
as a tight head prop is not good enough
Yes.
at that level.
Like
of women's
talking
rugby.
relative.
It's a different position.
Yeah, 100%. And you look at the likes of not only Maud Muir, but also like Sarah Byrne, Cecilia Tuipulotu, Rose Bernardu, you know,
Eve
Kapani. Like there are so many that you could throw out who are built extremely different. And Maud Muir, when you look at playing for Gloucester in the PWR this season, and whenever she made our team of the year, the Squidge team of the year last year, for not just being a world-class scrummager. That is one string to her bow. The off lineouts, they often use her as a carrier off 10. She gets really wide. She runs that like flood line off 10 beautifully. And she's so good at just breaking arm tackles. And she's so quick when she actually gets into space. And yeah, you say that she's used as an extra number 8, which is very true. But often England do use that tight head position like an extra back.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And
yeah.
Sarah Byrne, you would have thought was a player who's impossible to replace.
It's incredible,
in
isn't
the
it?
team.
Sarah Byrne has been the best tight head in the world for quite a while. Rasselea aside, obviously.
Of course, the best player I've ever seen.
Fijian tight head who, World Cup's coming up, she is unbelievable.
She's genuinely
Get
so
ready
good.
for her. She is phenomenal. If you didn't see her in the last World Cup, or any other game she's played, she's unbelievable. And that's an aside. Sarah Byrne has held that position for so long. She picks up one injury, and it's the depth England have, right? Maud Muir's been one of the best bench players in the world.
Yeah.
And then has come on and taken that starting shirt for
Now
herself.
she's as good as Sarah Byrne.
Yeah.
You know?
And then you look at how well she's played in the PWR, right?
Yeah.
Particularly the final where she was phenomenal. She was the best player on the pitch by a country mile.
Yeah. And I feel like this is going to be the year of Maud Muir for England. That in the last World Cup, the set piece was what defined England. And if that's going to be the case, I think everything's going to revolve around her. She's world class.
I stand by my prediction. I, at the minute, see Sadia Kabaya kicking on and becoming World Player of the Year this year, right? However, there's a number of players you can see, and I don't think a world in which Maud Muir is the first prop to ever win that award, male or female, comes to pass.
One's not been nominated before, have they?
Not in the men, no. Definitely not in the men's, and I'm pretty sure not in the
No,
women's either.
yeah. The closest we've had is Jota Fateye, but he didn't play
a
prop
hooker.
that year.
Yeah.
So, There you go. There's a bold prediction. Moldmuir could be the first prop nominated as far as we're aware. If we're wrong, tell us that we're wrong. But, so...
They do it anyway.
Yeah, they will.
Yeah, you've seen
They
comment
will.
sections on YouTube.
England,
England.
we highly expect that they are going to win the Six Nations.
As one quick note, right, to quickly run game by game, how big a challenge do you think we posed by them,
okay.
right? So Italy's up first. How big a threat do you think will be posed by Italy?
I think England will romp against Italy.
I think they will, like...
Especially with so many players who will be hungry for it. Who don't
Last
get many
year,
opportunities.
they had a red card about 15 minutes in, and they still won by 50 points.
Yeah.
Like, I think they will win very comfortably, even with the number of changes they've had.
Agreed.
Wales in the Principality.
Wales will beat them. That's fine.
Yeah, I think Wales will give them a bit more of a fight and will kind of stand up. But ultimately, I think it might be a game with being the Principality and Wales having the new coach. And
Ask me again in a week's time
Yeah,
when I know what Wales are like.
I think we might see a bit of a bounce from Wales, but I think England will have the game sorted by 60 minutes at least.
No, I think Wales will beat them and Zoe Harrison will immediately go and declare for Wales.
Agreed. Okay, so what about Scotland?
Scotland have that dog in them. And I think Scotland will fight and scrap, probably physically with fists out, for 40 minutes.
I think it'll be one of those games where if you were to look at it and remove every passage where there's tries scored, you would think it's a fairly even game.
Yeah.
And yet, Scotland will scrap and scrap and scrap and scrap and scrap for 7 points. And then England will effortlessly score 21.
That's it. It will be a 28-7 half-time. And you go, you know what? Scotland's been really good. They've been a better team.
Yeah. But
who's next?
Alas, Ireland.
Oh, again, ask me in a week when we know how good Ireland are. But I think Ireland will... They'll remember how much Twickenham hurt last year.
I think this might be the big game that they really go for both teams. I think this might be the game England need, is a tight one.
Ireland will come within 20 points.
It doesn't sound like a bold prediction, does it? But
it is.
This is where we are, yeah. I think Ireland will be in the game with 15 minutes to go and then probably slip off.
Yeah.
But I think we could see them coming very, very close. And it might be they get one lucky bounce somewhere or one lucky refereeing decision or something, and it leads to them perhaps pulling ahead in the last 10 minutes.
Sure.
Whether they hold out, I don't know, but I think it'll be a great test for the Red Roses team. And finally, France at Twickenham.
Exactly what you just said about the Ireland game. That it'll be quite close, then England will pull away with 20 odd minutes to go, and it will be a bigger scoreline than the Ireland one.
I think the Red Roses are going to view this as a real opportunity to put down a marker and really, prove themselves. I think we're going to look at a record margin against France.
Interesting.
That's my gut feeling now, is France will be brilliant, France will be the second best team for the rest of the tournament, and then England will absolutely demolish them.
Too much for them.
Absolutely, like 50 plus points.
What do you think? Who do you think is going to beat England? Someone's going to do it, right? That's how it works.
Who are you talking to?
You know, that person there? Yeah, you.
Oh, Cameron Jeff.
Oh, Cameron
Jeff. Classic Jeff.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. We never credit him or notice him.
No, we don't.
We don't pay attention to him,
He does such a good job of fixing our microphones.
He does such a good job. Yeah, I can't believe he broke our microphones in the first place and then came around and fixed them personally. Good old cameraman Jeff. It's outside his job description. He's only a cameraman.
Yeah.
He's a man that looks at cameras.
He really is. Big up Cameron. Say thanks to cameraman Jeff.
Thank you, cameraman Jeff.